welcome to another episode of the HealthyCare Podcast. My name is Catherine Okubo, and I am your host, and we're filming this podcast directly from our studios inside MPB Health, which is your go-to place for HealthShare memberships. And today, we're going to be talking more in depth about the healthcare system. And for this topic, I have with me someone that I'm very familiar with. We work together. She is the Director of Business Development at MPB Health, and she has an extensive background in traditional health insurance. Reba Larney, welcome to the HealthyCare Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here and talking to you today.
Well, Reba, I know your story very well, but for those that are watching us, can you explain a little bit how did you make the switch from, being so many years in the traditional health insurance industry to going into this whole new world of health sharing?
Sure. Sure. It's a great story, actually. So back in the early 2000s, I've been in the health insurance business for over 25 years.
Wow.
And it was necessary after a divorce for me to find a job. And I answered an ad in the newspaper.
Oh.
And I went to work for the regional director of a large health insurance company. Mm-hmm. And they specialized in individual health plans and small group plans, but mostly individual plans. So I really learned the business through that role, and that role was really an agent support role, pretty much. And over the course of a couple of years, I had gotten my health insurance license, and I had been offered leads that were coming into the office, and I just had an affinity for it. I was good at it. I was good at. It's really an educational role, selling health insurance. So I was good at it, and I went from that job to a firm that was a startup from a very seasoned employee benefits advisor, and we created this firm from scratch where we dealt mostly with small businesses. So I was an employee benefits advisor. Mm-hmm. So I knew both the individual insurance business well as group benefits. Mm-hmm. Life happens, and I did have tremendous success in the employee benefits world. But there were some downturns in markets and things that happened. Like I said, life happens. And over the course of about 15 years, I had kind of become a little bit disenchanted with what I was doing. I was still doing it, but I wasn't loving it. Health insurance was evolving and changing. Obamacare came in, and, nobody wanted it, it seemed like, and nobody liked it. And I never really grasped onto it in terms of selling either. I actually went into property and casualty for a little while. And then I decided I wanted to move to Florida from the suburbs of Philadelphia. And it was just all I wanted to do was move to Florida, all I could think about. And I thought, well, I can't really continue doing what I'm doing in Florida because you are straight commission when you're in the insurance business, mm-hmm. right? And I needed to move and get a place to live and all of this. And I thought to myself, I really feel like I need a job, right? Well, the universe provided. And this job fell in my lap to open a very nice restaurant here in Delray Beach as the sales and marketing manager. I had a lot of part-time experience in hospitality. Yeah. So my business experience with my hospitality experience made it a great role for me. So I moved to Florida and became the sales and marketing manager of a restaurant, but I kept doing insurance on the side, mm-hmm. Because I had so many years in the business, people would call me and say, Reba, I know you do health insurance. I need a health insurance plan. Or this small group that I know, this business owner, and he needs a plan. So I would do it, but sort of on the side.
Right.
Staying in the business, staying ahead of the curve, keeping my CEs up and all of that. And I went from that job to a couple of other jobs here in Florida that I just literally landed in. And the final role that I was in before coming to MPB was with First American Exchange.
I remember.
And that's how Catherine and I met.
Yeah.
Catherine was in title, I was in 1031 exchange, and I immediately saw her business acumen. I thought she was, very impressive. I could tell right away, and we forged a relationship that was more casual than it didn't have a lot of depth, but we did work on a transaction together.
Yes.
And when the real estate market took a turn, it really impacted not only title, but 1031 exchange, which is what I was in.
Real estate industry kind of like became so slow, like nothing was happening.
Nothing was happening. It just came to a halt. And at that time, I was like, and so First American Exchange had a huge cut in staff, just like a lot of title companies. And it was at that point in time where I was leaving for Italy for a trip that had been planned. And I thought to myself, when I come back from Italy, I'm just going to start my health insurance business. I'm going to go back to my roots, and I'm just going to go back to health insurance. And over the course of COVID, I had gotten my resident license changed to Florida and all of the things. And I come back from Italy, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I see you, Catherine, has joined MPB Health. And I looked up the company, and I figured this looks health insurance related. I didn't really know what it was. And I reached out to you, and at the same time, I recognized that you had a position open for Director of Business Development. I said, Catherine, I'd love to come in and talk to you. And you're like, yeah, come in and talk to me. And then that's how the story started.
Yeah.
I came in, we talked, and it turned out to be a great role for me. And you hired me, thank God. And so I was drawn to what you were doing because it was so different. And I really only knew health sharing as that religious thing. I didn't really know much about it. I knew about MediShare and Christian Health Ministries, but I didn't really know about it as a true solution. And I don't think people really did in general know about it as a true solution. But when I found out what you were doing, especially combining it with all of the other components, the telehealth at the time, the concierge, the minimum essential coverage and HSA compatibility, it was just, to me, it was like, wow, this is actually a solution to the problem of health insurance. And I was just so excited to be a part of that. So that is how I got back. The intention was to come back in the business, but I never thought that it would land me here with you doing something that, like I said, is truly a solution.
Yeah, I remember when I first met you in the real estate realm, I also thought, I was like, wow, she's so professional. I would love to work with her. And when we did a little bit of exchanges, so when you came to talk to me, I was pretty happy. And, obviously we're still really happy because you're perfect for this role. And I think what makes it so great is the fact that you have all that experience with the traditional health insurance, so you can truly compare both of them. And talking about that, what would you say are the main differences between traditional health insurance and the health sharing?
Yeah. The main differences between the two is that with health sharing, you really do have a lot more control, right? With health insurance, you have an insurance contract. With health sharing, you have sharing guidelines. They accomplish the same purpose, right? You have to have some boundaries around any kind of program, platform, plan, what have you. And the main difference was that with insurance, you really don't have much control. It is what it is. It's based on the insurance contract. And with health sharing, you have the ability to go to your doctor and say, I'm a self-pay patient. What is the cost of this going to be? You don't do that when you have insurance. When you have insurance, you lay down a card and you pay what they tell you to pay. And you don't have any idea of what the true costs are. Every now and then people look at their EOB or explanation of benefits and they're like, whoa, that's what they charged the insurance company? And all I paid was my copay, but wow, what they charge the insurance company is crazy. With health sharing, it's different. You know what you're going to pay because you're having those conversations with your doctors and providers.
Yeah, and
That's one of the main differences.
and you actually have like personal experiences, right? Switching from the traditional to health sharing. Can
Yeah.
you share that with us?
I'm going to share something that you might not know even. When I was offered the plan here at MPB, I was on a marketplace bronze plan. Awful plan. Everyone will agree. You know, high deductible, higher co-pays, little network, just not co-insurance, you know, a lot of out-of-pocket costs on the bronze plan and a big potential for high deductible. I think my deductible was $9,500. And I was offered the plan here at MPB and I took it, but I didn't drop my bronze plan because I was still making the shift in my mind. Okay,
Right.
how is this going to work for me? Because I have a pre-existing condition, and that is multiple experiences with skin cancer. And I thought, well, if I get into a really big situation, I'm nervous. And I was only on our plan for about 3 months, and I was just doing the math, and I thought, what am I doing paying for this bronze plan when I have this great coverage? Because when I did the math, it just made sense, right? Even if I had a major event in my first year, I knew that I could negotiate the cost of those claims. And that is huge. And I thought, there is no way I'm going to pay more, knowing what worst case scenario could be for my pre-existing condition, than what my cost is for this insurance. And I dropped it. And so I love the fact that I can go to my doctors and say, what are you going to charge me for this particular service? So if we take, for example, my dermatologist, that's my biggest concern because I have the pre-existing condition, right, of having to treat numerous skin cancers. So when I would go to the doctor on my bronze plan, I would pay my copay, which I believe for my dermatologist was like $75. And then they would do the skin check and they would frequently burn things off or freeze things off. Every now and then a biopsy, but rarely. And I would end up paying with my copay and my co-insurance, I would end up paying about $300 per doctor visit.
Per visit.
On the health share plan, I went to my doctor and I said, listen, I'm a self-pay now. I don't have doctor visit coverage. So what is my fee to come in and have a skin check? And how much is it when you freeze things off? And she said, well, the doctor visit will be $95. And then if I freeze anything, it'll be $10 per spot. Okay. So if I freeze 10 things and I have a skin check, that's $195. I was paying more than that when I had insurance. And then I would look at the EOB and they would be billing the health insurance company, Cigna, somewhere around $3,000 or $4,000 for that visit. So I was paying $300 with insurance, and they were billing the insurance company $3,000 to $4,000.
And your monthly premium was
Plus my monthly premium was like $600 a month. The math makes sense every single time on the health share. There's never a time it does not make sense if you do the math. You do have to look at your pre-existing condition and say, okay, what's my worst case scenario in the first year? And so for me, you know, we don't hide the fact that pre-existing conditions have a waiting period. So when I'm working with a prospect, I do have to talk with them about their pre-ex. And then sometimes I have to say, sometimes this probably isn't right for you. But most times it is, because you do the math and you look at your pre-existing conditions and you know what your costs are going to be because you're negotiating them.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more transparency. And, you know, health sharing is not for everybody, but it is a great fit for most people if they are aware and have that accountability as well, because you need to be more responsible in terms of keeping track of your receipts, of your medical bills, and understanding, especially if you have pre-acts, like what that's the worst case scenario is going to look like. But once you understand everything and you are on a good membership with a good support, like a concierge support and people that help you, then it's a great alternative.
Right. You also have to be willing to be your own advocate and speak up, right? When you have health insurance, you just give them your card and whatever it is, there's no negotiating. I like being able to go to my doctor and say, how much is this visit going to cost me? And how much is it going to cost if you do X, Y, Z? And, oh, you're ordering that blood test? Why? Why do you need that blood work? Because blood work costs money. So, I mean, this happened to me one time when I was on insurance. It was awful. I was on insurance and I went into my doctor and she ordered a bunch of blood work, and I really wasn't paying attention to what she was ordering. I was kind of telling her what was going on with me, but in hindsight, I ended up getting a bill for blood work that was $1,027. I'll never forget it. I almost choked. And I started looking at all the blood labs that she ordered, and I didn't need what she ordered based on what I was saying I wanted her to check. And I even went back to the doctor's office and said, listen, you ordered all this blood work that I don't feel like I needed, that you didn't tell me you were going to order, and now I've got this huge bill. And I was very upset about it. I had to suck it up and pay it.
Right.
But again, that's not going to happen to me now, because I'm going to ask about my blood work. Oh, you're ordering that lab? What do you need that lab for? I want to have a conversation about what we're ordering for my labs.
The membership pretty much like empowers you to
exactly
be more in control of your own health instead of just letting somebody else make all those decisions for you.
Exactly. Very
And
much.
and I think also the doctors and like the healthcare in general, they don't really, it's not like their fault in terms of charging more for the insurance companies, the traditional insurance companies, because they take so long to get paid too.
Yes, exactly.
So it's, they have to take into account that. And that's why we have a lot of doctors on our memberships, because they love that self-pay, cash pay model as well.
Yes, I have clients that are doctors. I mean, with doctors, they have to, they negotiate contracts with the insurance company, and the insurance company is trying to pay as little as possible to the doctors. And then they're trying to pay as little as possible of claims. Oftentimes people will say, well, with health sharing, how do I know that they're going to pay? I said, do you realize that 20% of insurance claims aren't paid annually? That is a huge number. And that's with an insurance contract. So with health sharing, you have health sharing guidelines. If the need is within the guidelines, it gets paid.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you say, is that why you think some people are afraid of mentally making the switch? Because you also had, that time, you still kept your old plan and before fully joining the membership. Like, why are people afraid of making the switch?
I think the biggest concern might be people thinking about even small pre-existing conditions and how that could be handled on a health share plan. The other thing is that, they're thinking about the health share guidelines and that they're not a contract, an insurance contract, which is so funny to me because, again, a little bit of research will tell you that health insurance companies don't pay 20% of claims annually or more. And so they have this false sense of security that this insurance contract or this insurance company has their best interest at heart, when they really don't. They really don't have their best interest. Whereas you compare that to health sharing, which are nonprofit companies, and they do have the best interest of the member at heart, and they do have the best interest of the community at heart. So I think that, number one, people are hesitant because it's not a new concept. It's been around for more than 40 years, but to most people, it's a newer concept. That's number one. Number two, the guidelines are less familiar than a contract. And then three, they're thinking about pre-existing conditions that they may have and being a little bit concerned about the look back. So I think those are the main reasons, because I'm telling you, it's not the price, because it's, health sharing plans are half of what insurance plans are, and the out-of-pocket which is an insurance term, member responsibility costs overall are
Way less.
half,
Yeah.
way less,
Yeah.
less than half a lot of times.
Yeah. What do you think are the questions that somebody should ask before joining a health share membership?
I think they should be very, very clear about the pre-existing conditions, limitations. That is the biggest thing, because I think most people think they're healthier than they are, and some people are not as sick as they think they are, right? So for all those people, they need to be real honest about what their pre-ex conditions are and know how they're handled with the health share. The other thing that they need to know or be aware of is the strength of the health share. Some easy Google searches were that's going to give you some mostly good and some bad. The health shares that we work with are very solid, so you want to be working with a quality health share, even going as far as looking at who the leadership is and their experience, if you really want to dissect it, right? If you're a person who's really going to research, look at the health share, look who's running it, and making sure they're nonprofit. And if you can get their financials online, that's also huge, So again, probably the most important thing is the pre-existing conditions.
Would you consider health share memberships a good option for small businesses?
100%.
Why?
Because most small businesses cannot afford to offer an employee benefits plan. And it is such an incredible benefit to offer to attract and retain quality employees. So small businesses are shut out not only because of their size. If they're under 5, it's very hard to find a group health plan for employers. And if they're over 5, they might be brand new, so they're going to be rated up for that, or they're just going to be just unaffordable. I mean, all of the Blue Cross, Aetna, United Healthcare plans for small groups, the rates are out of control. So as an advisor, as an agent, you need to have quality conversations with the employer and get access to the employees so you can find out about pre-existing conditions. And then if the group is right, it is an unbelievable opportunity for small businesses to offer a quality health plan that will help them attract and retain.
That's really good. And talking about businesses, where do you usually see that people make expensive mistakes related to healthcare?
As relates to businesses?
Or in general?
Well, not asking questions, right? Not being engaged in their care. Like me, that example I gave of the lab work that I had done, where I didn't ask what labs she was ordering, and I ended up with this huge bill. Now remember, if my portion was $1,027, they were charging the insurance company $3,500 for my blood work. So again, being engaged in your own healthcare, being your own advocate, asking questions. That's where the mistakes come in, is when you're not engaged and you're not asking questions.
That's true. That is true. Well, now changing a little bit of subjects, I know that you are a great networker in general. You're always going to some events. What is your secret for keeping up with, all of that energy? Because I can't, I'm not like that.
You need your downtime.
Yes, I need my downtime. After the office, I just want to relax and stay at home. But you go to a lot of different events, and you also have all that confidence, right? So how do you get all that energy and have the confidence to approach people that you've never met?
Right. I've thought a lot about this over the last few days, and I think part of it starts with your upbringing, right? And a certain amount of it is your God-given energy level, right? I've always been a very active person. As a child, I would get on my bike and ride miles to go to the pool and come back, and as far as my upbringing, my father was a chief master sergeant in the Air Force. So, he was, there were boundaries and guidelines and discipline and things like that. So I grew up in a household where, you had to be, you couldn't just be an empty chair, right? You had to be participating in life, doing well in school and being involved in things. My dad was, and my mom were very much motivational that way,
Right.
if you will. I was just, again, always a very active child, active teen, active all through my life. I've always been into working out. When I was young, I was always riding my bike, or I was cheerleader, I was on the swim team, I was just always busy, I was always active. And then when I got on the swim team, that's when I started going in the gym and using weights. And then I became very interested in weight training and working out. And so I've just lived a life of fitness. It's just has been something that calms my mind and keeps me motivated. And so I've just always lived that life of activity. And when it comes to networking, it kind of flows over into that, going to networking events and surrounding myself with acquaintances and being active not only helps me with my mental clarity and staying sharp and being engaged. It's always been a way to do business, right? And I've been working since I'm 15. At 15, I got my first W-2 job, and I haven't stopped. And most of my life, I had 2 jobs because I was a single mom. And so, making money and having the things I want and being active and surrounding myself with positive people, that's just always been a part of the fabric of my life. It energizes me to be around people. And not for nothing, my circle of acquaintances, I have a smaller circle of very close friends, but I have a very large circle of acquaintances and business associates and things like that. They get you through your life. They get you through tough times. They help you. They motivate you. Sometimes they challenge you, and, you grow from that. You would grow from positive experiences with people and negative experiences with people. So where does my energy come from? I think just my mental state of being always interested in moving forward and growing.
Right.
That's
Right.
just, if I go home every day and I just relax through bedtime, I'm probably not going to feel as if I'm growing in the way that I do. Now, I could stay home and do lots of different things. I know, for example, my boyfriend, he recharges by relaxing and kind of disengaging. And we agreed that I recharge by going and doing. So everyone's different, and I'm built that way, but I also nurture it because I know it's good for
Right.
me.
That's very interesting. And yes, talking about the more networking piece, everybody is really different because, for example, for me, I can go on a stage and talk to like thousands of people on a stage or shoot a TV show, no problem. But when it comes to networking, I am so afraid of approaching somebody that I've never met before. I feel like so awkward,
Yeah.
But you do that so easily.
Well, it's not, it wasn't always easy. I mean, I've always been, a chatty person for the most part, but I remember might have been really one of the first networking events that I went to. And I remember it was at this country club and the ballroom, and it was a Exton Region Chamber of Commerce event. Very much the size of like the Delray Chamber, right? Not huge, but big enough. And I remember I was going to meet someone there who had invited me, but I remember the giant doors that they have going into most ballrooms, right? I remember standing outside of the door and being like, okay, I'm going to walk into this room full of people that I don't know. And it was really one of the first times that it grabbed me that, okay, I got to do this. And my thought was, fake it till you make it. So I just went in with the attitude, I'm going to speak to people. And, I found the food and I found the drink, and that's where people tend to congregate. And I planted myself there for a moment, and a conversation naturally started, right? So it's just it's a mindset, like most things.
Yeah.
It was like fake it till you make it. Just like I remember when I was getting into sales, I remember a boss of mine, the company owner, he said to me one time when I guess something fell through, an opportunity, a deal fell through, and he said, Reba, some will, some won't, some can't next. And I've never forgotten that. And in sales, that's super important. Like, some will, some won't, some can't next. You can't just, give up when someone says no. You just have to keep going,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And then this whole idea of fake it till you make it. I might not feel the most confident when I walk into the room, but I have to be the most confident when I walk into the room. So all these little things that I've learned over the years come into play when I'm out and having to talk to people. Sometimes it's not easy. You walk into a room and it's a different kind of room, a different kind of vibe, and it's harder to find someone to kind of connect with. But
do you have any tips for people that want to get the most value out of networking events? Is there any way that they should prepare?
Well, first of all, when it comes to networking, if you are not feeling it, do not go, because that comes across. So if you're ever invited, you're ever planning to go to an event and you really are dreading it, don't go. But tips to be prepared, try to find out who's going to be there. And if there's someone in particular you'd like to meet, try to meet that person, whether it's by, asking the organizer. I love getting to know the organizers of events, the people who are doing check-in, right? If you get to know the people who are doing check-in, if I want to meet Catherine, I can say to the check-in person, is Catherine here, or can you show me where, have you seen her? And then I can meet them. So kind of being a little bit prepared with who you might like to meet. Also, when you're networking, you want to ask people questions, not necessarily first about their business, right? Try to work in something that's a question that's personal. Oh, did you take any great vacations yet this summer? People love to talk about that kind of thing, and then if you get them to talk about something a little more personal, like where they just went on vacation, then you can lead sort of more comfortably into what you do. So I try to do that as well. Let's lead with something a little more personal, and then get into business.
That's a good point, because then everybody is trying to sell something. I mean, especially it's really hard, for example, with LinkedIn, right? You get all these thousands of messages and it's just people trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of the same thing in real life with networking. And talking about that, what do you think it makes someone special and stand out for you when nowadays professionals are connected to hundreds, sometimes thousands of people in their network?
What makes someone stand out to me?
Rememberable, what
Memorable.
Would make somebody,
I feel I believe people who are memorable are people who can try to be a little warmer, again, not going directly into what they do. Even little things like an honest compliment go a long way, again, just that personal connection, no matter how small it is, makes someone memorable, right? One time I went to a networking event, and a woman, I was wearing a yellow dress, and she was like, oh my gosh, you're like a ray of sunshine in that yellow dress. And she was memorable because of that, not because I need compliments, but because she opened with something that was warm, right? As opposed to opening with what she did. And so people who are memorable are people who can try to find a little bit of warmth in their self, and again, ask a question that's maybe not business related right away, or you know, recognize something about the person. Oh, you have a beautiful smile, or I like that lipstick, or something genuine.
Yeah.
But that can be an immediate connection and way to sort of calm the person that you're talking to.
Yeah, very well. Very well. Well, Reba, I think we've reached the end. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience in specific?
I would just like to say that, again, with 25 plus years of experience in the health insurance world, anyone who's not exploring health sharing is just doing themselves a disservice. I mean, it is an amazing alternative to what we know is a broken insurance system. And do your research, but at the end of the day, this is an amazing opportunity for people to save money, have more control of their health care, and really overall reduce their expenses of something that is just so expensive to start with. That's money that they can use to invest. That's money they can use to travel. But if you haven't explored it, really, really take the time to understand it before just writing off the opportunity.
Yeah, that is great advice. Yeah, thank you, Reba, for sharing, your life story, diving deeper into healthcare with us, and giving us networking tips. Very valuable. How can people find you online?
Well, you can find me on Facebook and on Instagram. Usually a quick search of Reba Del Rey. I don't even have to give you my handle.
Nice.
It usually comes up. And then you can also reach me, of course, at MPB Health. And my landing page is Join MPB, because why wouldn't you want to join MPB? Join MPB and my name. So you can reach me those ways.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Reba. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
And guys, thank you very much for being with us at the HealthyCare Podcast. We'll see you on the next one.
Have a great day.